episode 29 of the podcast. Today we're going to talk about drying. Do we need to use a dryer? Are dryers scary? What kind of ways can we break down the drying process to help dogs who might be afraid of any particular part of that process? This is the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Christy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. Today I want to talk about drying, and I'm going to split it into two parts. So first we're going to talk about what kind of things might be scary to a dog. And in the second part, we're going to talk about some of the tips that ways we can break up that process and make it smaller and help dogs learn about it and help them be good. But one of the questions that I saw recently was, do we even need to use a dryer? That's a great question. Owners and trainers, I know that's a common question. Why do we even need to use a dryer? Lots of dogs can air dry. And I'm going to say that there are coat types that can air dry pretty comfortably. But some dogs, if we let them air dry, are far more likely to become matted than if we actually blow dried them. So blow drying process isn't just about getting them dry. For many, it's about straightening the hair and having it lay flat and kind of helping that dog have less mats later. Sometimes it's also about helping get dead coat out, but that's not necessary if we're working on a dog who is worried about drying. We have other ways to get dead coat out. But even the dogs that are easily air dried, if it's too cold or if it's too damp, there are times when that's not really practical. So in my experience, I think it's really good for any dog to learn a little bit about drying, right? Even if it's a short-haired Chihuahua and you may never ever dry that dog in their entire life, just go ahead and do it, right? Why not? Why not? So I think that the coat types that are really obvious are things like poodle coats, any of the doodles, any of the poodle mixes, and I know people aren't really thrilled with me calling them poodle mixes, but if they are mixed with a poodle, golden doodle, labradoodle, schnoodle, they often have an undercoat with a curly outer coat. They are a huge brushing project for the average owner. The average owner doesn't know how much work they're getting into. I don't brush my border collies as often, and I like my dogs nice and brushed out. Right? They really have a problem with trying to keep that type of coat from becoming all clogged up with undercoat and matting. So it's a particularly difficult coat, and they need to be really cared for differently. So sometimes we end up taking those short. We talked about shaving in another episode. Do we need to clipper that all off, or do we need to brush it through? But if we're going to have any sort of length, we really need to make sure that we're drying it straight, because that is going to bounce back into a little bit of curly, but it's going to help promote good hair growth and help prevent mats, provided we're using conditioners and stuff like that too. There's a lot to it, but the idea of just skipping the dryer for some dogs isn't really a great idea, right? There's a point where, we're kind of in an emergency situation and we're like, okay, we're just going to do the best we can. And I agree with that, okay, well, I don't want this dog to be terrified, so maybe we skip the bath too. I know, did I just say that, right? But if we really think that this dog cannot handle drying, then perhaps we should skip the bath. Perhaps we should do something else, damp cloth and brushing and, if they aren't ready for drying and to be fully dried, then maybe we should skip the bath also and do the work that they need to help be comfortable with drying. So another question. This one's a pretty common one. Are dryers scary? Are they scary? Right? I hear dogs are afraid of dryers. And to me, that's very, very broad. Right? That's like when people tell me, oh, dogs hate having their feet touched. Which dog? On what day? Which dog? How do they show it? What are they afraid of? Dogs are afraid of dryers. That to me is just not specific enough. So if we look at an individual dog and we start thinking, this dog, these owners, this is a new dog to me. These owners are telling me that this dog is afraid of the dryer. Now we have questions we need to ask. And I want you to think, awesome, they're onto it that there's something wrong, right? This dog does not have the response that we would like around dryers. But we need to ask, well, great. All right, so you've observed something. Let's nitpick and find out what it is, right? So I don't think that most dogs have a problem with the dryer. There's a lot more to it. So let's talk about there's the loud noise. Some dogs definitely need help learning how to be comfortable with loud noises. There's the feeling of air on their skin, right? I think about it's different than a breeze or the wind, right? That's a little piece of air kind of touching almost like an invisible hand, right? I want you to think about like how creepy that could be if a dog is not used to that, right? So in some circumstances, it's about the feeling of the air. For some dogs, it's about being overwhelmed by being touched all over with a loud noise and being repositioned. Because, a dog that's sitting is going to be asked to stand up and probably guided into a stand so that we could dry their backside, right? So for some dogs, it's I'm doing three things at once and I find three things at once overwhelming. Okay, so there are a lot of things going on all at the same time, but we have to figure out what this dog is comfortable with and what this dog needs help with. So if you have a dog that's brand new to you, new customer, test it out. Separate those skills into smaller bits. And so today I have a customer I'm going to be going to, brand new customer. The dog is, I believe, 14, and she gave the bath yesterday. We're just going to take off some hair. This dog is having some real health problems, right? There are ways that we can modify what a dog can handle, right? And to do things in a slower process, like, okay, bath yesterday, trimming today, if this dog can't handle trimming today, I might, reschedule and do more another day. We talked about that already. We planned it out, right? We don't need to do it all at once because she is really frail, right? So if we're going to test out with this particular dog I'm working with this afternoon, right? I'm going to turn on the dryer noise when we're not doing anything else. See how she reacts to it. Does she have an issue with it? Right? I'm going to test her, like, how is she for being touched everywhere? How is she for being held? How is she going to feel while I go through the motions of the dryer? Maybe I turn the dryer off and just, show her the hose and go through the motions. I'm going to pick up her feet and take a look at where her nails are and go through the motions. Like, how is she going to be while I hold her in the way that I need to hold her to have access to the toenail to clip the toenail? Right? So there are ways that we can test things out without actually turning on the dryer or before I get her wet. Like I said, this particular dog, we're breaking it up into multiple day process because we know she's just frail. We don't want her to do multiple hours worth of being groomed, right? And I think that many, many groomers are willing to do that if customers understand that they have some work to do too, right? We can't just, give that away for free, right? It's still going to be a couple hours of work, right? It's not like, you get the same price as every other Cocker Spaniel because yours is a Cocker Spaniel. It's more work, right? But if we look at the individual dog and think about how much that dog can handle and help them be set up to be comfortable with it. If we're doing it right, it's about as interesting as watching paint dry. It's about as interesting as watching grass grow. If we're doing it right, it doesn't look exciting at all. So in the next part, we're going to talk about some strategies for helping a dog if they have an issue with some of these. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. So how can we break drying down into smaller bits for training purposes? So one of those things is I want you to think about some any time-saving strategies that you have for making drying faster or making the process of getting a dog dry faster. So one of the things that I use an awful lot is an absorber. It's from the automotive department. It's actually, it looks like a towel, but it's actually like a very, very thin sponge. And I squeeze every dog out, and then you squeeze the towel out and you use it again. You squeeze the towel out and you use it again. One towel to get them to the point where if they shake, nothing comes off. Like I truly towel them down to damp, which is part of help lessening any of the drying time that we need to do. So I towel them off with that absorber until they're damp. Like I said, you can find them at Walmart. You can find them at auto parts stores. The things are awesome. I've been using them since the 90s. They're fantastic. I don't know why every groomer's not using them. So another tip, if you need to save some time with the actual dryer, is while you're toweling, brush. Brush while you're toweling, because you're using mechanical means to move all that water around and the towel's picking it up. Honest to God, I do that with my own hair, right? I have really thick hair. If I were to just take it from like kind of iffy towel to with the dryer, it would take me 20 minutes to just do my hair, right? We think about how long it takes to do a dog and get them dry. Well, if we can break that down into steps that they're more comfortable with, like being squeezed out with towels and being brushed with a towel, then we don't have to spend as much time with the actual mechanical device of a high velocity dryer. We do have cage dryers and we have stand dryers and there are the handheld dryers. But I'm talking about the high velocity dryer as a time saver. If you're going to use cage drying, yeah, let's get into cage drying. So cage drying definitely has got a bad reputation because people hear cage drying or crate drying. I don't know what they're thinking, but basically we're putting a dog in a crate with some air. And usually it's just a little bit warm. We usually don't use hot air. In fact, I don't even know if they make crate dryers that go hot anymore, but just a little bit of air flowing through, helping them dry. Sometimes there's a box fan in front of their crate too, helping the airflow. For dogs who cannot handle a high velocity dryer, that might be less stressful, or it might be the same kind of stress. Right? So be thinking about, well, is that really like, are we just taking our own preferences and saying, oh, I don't like cage drying? You know, like there's nothing wrong with cage drying, right? It's okay to put a dog in a crate with some warm air. Dogs always have to be supervised in our care, but you hear that 1 in a million story from somebody who is not really doing their job very well, and everybody suddenly thinks that dogs die in there. Thousands of dogs every day are in a cage with some nice warm air. It's very, very common practice. But if we're trying to think about what an individual dog is going to be most comfortable with, then we can say, this dog has issues with people putting their hands on them for that long. He's going to be able to relax in a crate with some warm air. This dog just doesn't like the sound. And so if we put him on the table and get him done faster, then this dog will appreciate that. This dog will be more comfortable with the faster version. It's all about the individual dog. So talking about time-saving things, when we talk about like using the absorber and using brushing while we towel dry, those are ways that we can minimize the use of the mechanical device that makes noise, if noise is the issue. So if noise is the issue, here's something else that we can do. We can turn a dryer on when we're not drying the dog. We can get them used to the sound while we're doing something else. And many dryers have like a low setting and a high setting. I know that some of them have like a dial. If you start off with a low setting, just get a feel for if that dog has an issue with it. You're not even putting the dryer on them yet. Just find out. We can work on that sound individually on its own without adding the chaos of everything else going on and without adding a need to be dried, right? So another thing that we can do with keeping the dog calm is we can have that dryer sound, just turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. I will actually... if I'm sending something home with an owner to work on, we'll record some sounds so that they can use them on their phone. Now think about a dryer sound on a customer's phone that they can move the phone over the dog, right? They can lower the volume. They can increase the volume. They can gradually get the dog used to one aspect of the drying process, which is the sound, right? The volume of air is a different part of the process. But if we can separate those out, that's really helpful. Um, Another way that we can help lessen sound is I really like putting cotton in their ears. And it's not really a great way to, like, it's not the same as putting in earplugs because, I test everything on myself first. So if I put a little bit of cotton in the ear, it's not the same as if you were wearing earplugs or headphones. But if you turn the volume on for the dryer first and then put cotton in their ears, they respond differently if you put cotton in their ears first and then turn on a dryer. Turn the dryer on first, then put the cotton in because their response is different. And what I mean by their response is different, most dogs, in my experience, will calm down and settle down a little bit and let me put that cotton in their ear because it seems like, I know, not very scientific. I would guess that it immediately feels better. Instead of I'm putting something weird in your ear and you kind of are like, why is she putting something weird in my ear? And then this loud noise comes on. Whereas if the noise is already on, you put something weird in their ear and suddenly the noise is lessened, right? It's a comfort level that wasn't there if you do it the opposite version, right? So turn the dryer on, put cotton in their ears. We also have happy hoodies. And what a happy hoodie is it's sort of like a stretchy terry cloth tube that you put over the dog's head, and it kind of like is nice and secure around their ears, and it wraps around their head, and it can help dry because it is terry cloth and it's absorbing while it does it. It helps deaden the noise. I find some dogs really appreciate that. They're like, "Ooh, this is nice," and then other dogs I think find it uncomfortable and a little bit scary. Test that out. Test it out when a dog's not wet. Right? You can test these things out. Like, give it a try. So if you really like using happy hoodies in your shop, yeah, you're getting to know a dog, put it on them before they need it. Find out how they're going to be. Maybe they will really like it. Maybe that's the dog who thinks, oh, I feel like it's clamping on my head. But a happy hoodie can be really good for helping absorb more of that moisture, helping them dry and get to the point where they're damp, and also deadening some of the noise. So if sound is part of it, right? Now I want you to also have an awareness of the sound spikes. And what I mean is when that high velocity air hits the grooming loop or your fingers or the edge of a toe, right? That those sounds change. Think about the sound quality changing. Different dryers have a different sound quality also. When I first started grooming, we had the orange Metro dryer. It was a really common one at the time, and it had this kind of higher pitch to it that honestly I find really kind of annoying. Now, I have two dryers right now, and I have an old double K, which has a lower pitch. It's still quite loud, but it has a lower pitch to it. It's not the same sound quality as the higher pitch double K dryer. Not double K, the Metro dryer. But it's got this lower kind of a versus the yeah, we're just going to make fun, right? And then I have a Chris Christensen Cool Pup dryer, which is the one that I usually carry with me to grooming appointments because I'm a house call groomer. And that one's quite quiet, but part of the sound of any drying process is not just the mechanical dryer, it's the air hitting the skin and hitting wet fur and the sound quality of when air hits fingers and toenails, okay? That changes. And I want you to think about, okay, so if a dog is having sound issues, right? If their problem is sound, here are some ways that we can make it softer. Like we can adjust it so it's down low, only turn it on high for the couple of areas that really need a little bit more, right? We can make it fun. There are plenty of ways to make it fun. That's kind of a whole podcast in and of itself, right? But once it's on and the air is on, there's a lot going on all at the same time. So if we break it down to other things and separate it all out, then we can have the high velocity at the same time as the noise touching the skin, right? Now, that air touching them, that's like an invisible hand touching them. And that's really weird. It's different than a breeze. It's different than the wind. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say it took me God knows how many years to figure this out because I only figured it out about 6 months ago. But one of the ways that I now that I got smart, right, will help a dog with the feeling of it being touched with the dryer is while they're still under a towel, I wrap the towel around them and I have a nice smooth towel over kind of like the middle of their body, whatever this particular dog thinks isn't scary. And then I run the dryer over the towel. And an interesting thing happens. It's the easiest version before you actually run it over their skin. And taking some time to go through the motions over the towel and to take the towel up near their neck and dry over the towel, it's not getting them dry. It's teaching them about the feeling. And then when you remove the towel and gently go over their body and then back to the towel and then back to their body and back to the towel, right? We can lessen the sensation and help them learn about it in a way that is constructive. And it took me a long time to learn that. So, and I'm sure there's somebody out there going, really, Chrissy, you didn't know that? But that's why this podcast is here. I want us to talk about things like that. We all have some really neat nuggets, some really awesome experience that we should be sharing with each other. So that was a lot this week. I want to get into our weekly action step. And this week's weekly action step is to kind of get some recordings of the various dryer sounds and have them on your phone or, available to you to at least be able to explore what those different sounds are. Okay, so that's your weekly action step. Get some recordings on your phone so that in the future, when you have a dog who needs some extra help with dryers, or with drying, you have something available that doesn't blow air, but can make that sound, right? It'll help you assess that dog better because every dog is an individual and every dog has a different response to a different part of the process. And we can't just call it drying. That's like saying, doesn't like school. If a kid doesn't like school, we're like, which subject? I mean, certainly you don't hate everything about school. Well, no, I like my friends and I like lunch. And there's always a bunch of pieces. And when we look at those bunches of pieces, that's how we can discover what we can do to help this dog be comfortable with the very specific piece that they're not comfortable with. So, like I said, our action step this week is to take some recordings, record some dryer sounds. And if you guys are having trouble with that, maybe you're a trainer and you don't have dryers, right? Or you're an owner and you don't have dryers. I'm going to go ahead and record some drying sounds and I'm going to put them on the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast Facebook group, which hopefully you guys will join if you're not there already. I would love to get some conversations going in there. But really all I've been doing is just posting episode stuff. But for us to be able to have some dryer sounds to play with. Okay. And I will take some dryer sounds and I'll put them on there. So everybody have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. I'm also happy to come to you if you're near my area in southern New Hampshire. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.